So I'm Michaela, and today we have Really Blonde on the Soundtrack of Our Lives podcast. So welcome. We're really glad to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so you recently put out Dumb Blonde. How has that been received by the fans?
Fans. It's been well received, I think. I'm super happy with it. Everyone says it's kind of like their favorite song so far. I like to think that kind of the growth I've made as a musician and an artist over the past like year or so shows in the song. It's my first song working with a new producer, so it's
Hmm.
just kind of a different flavor to the really blonde sound than we've had before. And it was a very long process to get the song finished from start to completion. So between that and the music video and kind of like producing, directing everything myself, like I do kind of for all my music, or at least for the visuals, I mean,
Hmm.
I do all of the visuals myself. It's just a big undertaking to take on, and it's kind of the first single from this new chapter of music we're working on. And yeah, I'm happy to have her out in the world. I'm really proud of the project, and people seem to really like it. So
Yeah,
I'm glad.
I really enjoyed it, and I loved the music video too. So
Thank you so much.
yeah,
I really appreciate that.
yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot to break down in what you were just talking about. So you mentioned a little bit about your sound kind of changing and evolving. Are there any particular things that you can point to that have changed or evolved?
Well, I just think that I started as a songwriter from a very, very basic place. Like I knew I wanted to make music,
Mhm.
but I just didn't really have like a method. And so I finally kind of picked up guitar again, like during the pandemic and kind of taught myself. And, it's kind of like, okay, pop music's like four chords. You can kind of figure it out, but I think that just the longer I've been able to kind of sit side by side with a producer and sort of understand like not even necessarily how music works because like I think I have a good ear for things, but
Hmm.
just understanding the vocabulary for how to explain what you want something to sound like and just
Yeah.
the different ways something can sound. I mean, it's kind of just like endless. It's similar to photography where it's like there's so many things you could do to,
Yeah.
make a final product that it's almost like intimidating. But I think just having kind of a better awareness for that and being able to better articulate what I want and just having more confidence in the room so that I feel comfortable like
Hmm.
saying like what if we tried this or like maybe this doesn't make sense but I'm trying to articulate something to you.
Yeah.
Sonically though, I do feel like I've always kind of thought about my music in like chapters, and so I'm a very visual person, obviously. I come from like a visual art background. And so to me, the first chapter of my work of fantasy was very much like pop punk, kind of bratty, like fun, high energy project.
Hmm.
And I sort of knew that after that, I wanted to pivot a little more indie rock and go a little grungier. And then, of course, like in the back of my mind, I always think towards the future. I like still am gunning for like a country project after this. And
Okay.
so it's like, I kind of go into it knowing that it's serving this specific purpose for me. And so
Hmm.
kind of opens it up where I don't feel so tied to it sounding exactly like the old music, but I hope that it still kind of feels consistent like to my work. So I don't know, it's cool because I think approaching music from sort of a non-traditional musician background, I feel like I kind of give myself a little bit more freedom to like
Hmm.
explore than maybe someone who, has been with a label for like 5 years or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And so then you worked with a new producer on this. What was that like?
It was great. I've been working with my producer, Robbie G, and he's fantastic. And he's very experienced in the music industry. He's been a touring musician for a while. He's been a producer for a while. So he just has kind of a longer like life experience
Hmm.
of musicality than I do, which I really appreciate that he's willing to kind of like lend it to, this project of
Hmm.
mine. And I think just having someone in the room that, is a bit older, like has this kind of big Rolodex in his head of 90s 2000s music that
Hmm.
like I didn't really like catch when I was a kid. Like I kind of have been doing like a backwards music education for myself because when
Hmm.
I was growing up, like my dad was super into bluegrass. Like I was listening to a lot of kind of like, yeah, sort of like country adjacent
Hmm.
music. And so I think you sort of see like the singer-songwriter aspect of that sort
For
of like
sure.
in my bones and in my music. But, for the sound I kind of wanted for this project, I felt like I sort of needed like different references. And
Hmm.
I'm, was on a big 90s kick listening to the Breeders and Smashing Pumpkins and everything. And, I could go into the studio and say, oh yeah, this is what I've been really inspired by recently. And he'll say, oh, this reminds me of this other thing, and then pull up this
Hmm.
band that I've never even heard of. And then I've got like a whole new discography to be like obsessed with.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of nice. It's been very like, feels like there's a lot of air in the room. Like there's a lot of room for like ideas to bounce
Yeah.
around. Like, and we're working together pretty consistently. So like we hang out every week. Like we, really are giving the music like the space it needs
Hmm.
to just like exist and kind
Very
of come
important.
together. Whereas I feel like for the first project, Fantasy, just like the way I was making it, like was, I mean, I was just at a different point in my life. I
Yeah.
wasn't making as much money. I was like, it was taking way longer to get everything done. Like, I was kind of going into the studio and finishing a song in like 3 sessions because I like had to,
Hmm.
and now it's kind of like we have a bit more of the gift of time to
Yeah.
really like marinate in these songs, which I'm like so grateful for. I
Hmm.
think like any musician will agree that like the biggest gift you can have as an artist is just like time, because time is money and it's expensive. And it's like I really value kind of like every creative person that I work with. Like I really value their time and their energy. 'Cause coming from that background, like I know it's like not
Hmm.
it's not a joke. Like that's your
Right.
time, that's your life. Like
Yeah. Yeah. And then so you produced the music video with your new, I don't know how to describe it, hot creative. I
yeah.
don't, I don't know if you want to talk about that, what that experience was like.
Yeah, I've been producing music videos and directing videos for years now with different artists in Brooklyn. And I think a lot of why I wanted to pivot to music was like selfishly to do my own visuals. But I just think I have a very strong vision. Like I sit up at night and like think of these very wild things. And I just want to make it real. Like
Hmm.
it's this whole like, yeah, fantasy world in my head that I really just want to like bring into the world. And I just think filmmaking is so fun. I love music videos. Like I love being on set so much. Like
Hmm.
there's just an energy on set that you don't get. Like it's like kind of on par with like when you have like tech week before like a theater performance, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like that kind of like insane energy, but you're like so excited about what you're doing that it's just like I love it. But maybe that's just because I'm like a theater kid at heart, and
Hmm.
so I have that kind of like thing in me. But yeah, like once I started kind of putting my music project more forward, I really knew I needed like a place for all my production work. And
Hmm.
so the music videos I direct for myself are kind of like the perfect culmination of the two of them coming together.
Yeah.
And I think that it really showcases like my skills and my background as, all the different roles I've played in my life. Like as well as it can. So this video was kind of one of the more like narrative based videos that we've done. And it's, kind of a blessing and a curse to do a video like that because it's very specific. And so you have a
Hmm.
very detailed shot list that you really need to get done in the day that you have planned. And
Hmm.
also, it's a lot of like, really making sure in your brain that the pacing is going to work at the
Hmm.
end of it. And, throughout the day, my DP, Zach, kept looking at me and being like, do you feel like this is like pacing the way that you want? And it's like, there's really no way to know. But I'm like, I think so. And I think we really like accomplished it at the end. But I'm like all of these nights of me sitting here. I mean, it got towards the end where we were trying to finish the final master of the song, and I was prepping for the video, and I'm just sitting here at night listening to it, going and one and two and zoom, punch and cut the rope, and I was just like losing my mind. Like, okay, like I think it will work. So I'm really proud to kind of have this piece in my portfolio
Hmm.
as a strong like narrative video, just to kind of like show people what I'm capable of. And I think that she fits in really well to like the Really Blonde universe overall.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite music video that you've produced?
uh, I mean, Dumb Blonde is definitely up there because it was just so fun, and
Hmm.
so many people have just like said that they think it's like one of the funnest videos we've done. So I really appreciate that. But I'm always going to have like a soft spot in my heart for Fantasy because I think it just like represented so much more to me than just like a video.
Hmm.
It was kind of like this vision I'd had for so long it was this kind of breaking out of my shell and moving from, just kind of always being behind the camera to actually writing my own music, producing this video. And also just like the scale of the video was so
Mhm.
insane, like shooting at this mansion in New Jersey, and like everybody over there was like a character and a half, and it was just like crazy energy the whole weekend. But I mean, it's like my life is a gift. Like I'm able to, do these projects with like all the people I love. Like the crew was like my friends, my girlfriend, like, it was
Mhm.
just I'm just like surrounded by people that really like fuck with my vision and like want to be part of it, and
Mhm.
all are very talented at their craft and their job. And so it was an
Yeah.
amazing crew that we had. And also it was just like all these poor guys that I had pulled in to be all these bachelors just like hanging out all day. But they like broed up and like all became buddies like by the end of the night. Like I literally felt like I was like living the bachelorette experience, because I was like, oh, like this is literally how it goes on the show. Is like the bachelorette spends like 5 minutes with each guy,
Mhm.
and the guys just like play beer pong like the rest
Mhm.
of the time, and then at the end it's like I'm supposed to have a connection with one of these people. Like I don't even know them. Like, but yes, it was really, really fun. It was a really fun weekend, really chaotic, but just like again that onset energy that I love. And I just think that the final product came out like exactly how I had imagined, like if
Mhm.
not beyond that. So it was a huge accomplishment, and I'm really proud of that video. And I honestly was kind of worried at first, because I was like, oh my God, like we really knocked it out of the park with this video, and I don't know how to top this. Like, how
Mhm.
can this be the first song? Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to keep this up, you know? So Dumb Blonde to me, I'm really happy that it wasn't nearly on the scale at Fantasy. Like we shot it
Mhm.
all in my apartment. So, finding ways to kind of like make the videos more accessible and, not have a full like Hollywood production for each film. It's been a good exercise kind of in my creativity and my resourcefulness,
Mhm.
like as a director and as a producer. But yeah, so Fantasy is definitely my favorite, but I am very proud of Dumb Blonde.
So what have you taken from working on other people's music videos into making your own?
I think just like the process of it all, I
Mhm.
think a lot of it just comes from experience, and you're not really gonna know like all the things that you would need to know about production until you do it. And in that sense, I'm really glad that I've had so many years of production experience
Mhm.
before I delved into something like this for myself, because Fantasy was definitely the largest scale film production I've worked on, like leading it myself, and
Mhm.
I had help of a couple of other my friends who are producers that I've worked with in the past, and I would not have been able to do it without them. But there's just like, small things that no one ever thinks about, like do the rental vans come with locks or not?
Mhm.
Like why am I driving to Staples at like why am I driving to Home Depot at like 12:30 because I have to go get like extra long locks? Like it's just like really specific stuff
Mhm.
that even as a director, like I wouldn't necessarily be thinking about, but
Right.
because I've kind of like been forced over the years to kind of fill these like various roles like to make a project happen, like now it's like my to-do list is very concise when I do a project, because I'm like, all right, like I know we need to check the insurance, I know we need to
Mhm.
check the vehicles, we need to check this, we need to check the right, like,
Yeah.
and so I'm really grateful just for kind of like that build up and that sort of experience on set, so that now I can kind of like operate on my own and
Mhm.
know what I need to prepare for. And then also just, like creatively kind of having many projects under my belt. I've worked a lot with my friend John Luke, who is like now kind of like known as like the TikTok like NYC clout guy or whatever. But he is an amazing producer and also musician, and we've done a lot of music videos together. And I really appreciate kind of the opportunity he gave me as like a young, post grad in New York City to
Mhm.
direct these videos for him, because someone's got to pay for it. and, and he was kind of had saved up to produce these videos for his project, and so bringing me on to direct it, I really appreciated that opportunity at the time. And I think that we had a very similar vision, like aesthetically. He very much leans into this kind of like character of his music persona. Like
Mhm.
his whole kind of online presence is very
Yeah.
much like kind of this over the top like character, like this satire of kind of like New York culture
Mhm.
and like kind of fame and money and like what we're all here for. And
Yeah.
I've just always really enjoyed like that kind of sense of humor that he keeps like in his work. And I think that's why we've worked really well together over the years is that we have a very clear kind of like cinematic vision while
Mhm.
also trying to keep this kind of like sense of like humor and like satire to like the project itself
Yeah.
and kind of have all of the videos that we do sort of live in this one like universe of like his music. And so I feel like that's something that I've kind of taken and really tried to bring to my music as well in my
Mhm.
videos of sort of like having it be really top quality and really hiring the right people to achieve like this final product that I'm really happy with, but at the same time kind of like still having a bit of a sense of humor about the whole thing. I mean, I like to think that my work is like very comedic,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, I really just think that like a lot of art gets very, very like melodramatic and like self-involved. And like we're all self-involved. Like that's, why we're doing any of this. But
Mhm.
I just think you have to keep like a lightness to stuff. And so, that's more just kind of like on my philosophy side of art. But I do think it's kind of like stuff that I've picked up like over all the years of
Mhm.
kind of being around and figuring out what resonates with me and what doesn't, and so on and so on.
Yeah. I like that. So, do you have a favorite aspect of filming a music video?
I mean, I can't lie, like there is definitely something now about sitting in the makeup chair and like getting my little makeup done that like really does it for me. Like I think because I've spent so many years like helping other people kind of like make their vision a reality, like I sort of indulge now in the sort of more glamorous aspects of being a star because
Mhm.
it's fun. Like I love to dress up. I love to get pampered. I love to, have my friends do my makeup. Like I love to feel glam. And I think so much of that is like not just because it's fun, but because it like gets me into the mindset like of
Mhm.
the character of
For sure.
this video. I feel the more that I continue along with this music project, like kind of the more that she like exists kind of as an entity like on her own.
Mhm.
Like I am really blonde, but also like I think she's kind of taking on her own like existence at this
Yeah.
point. And it's kind of fun to explore like where those characters kind of overlap like in my
Mhm.
life and kind of in the art, and sort of playing with that like fourth wall kind of thing. And so a lot of it to me, I think that is really fun about it now is sort of this fanciful aspect of like dressing up in this character and
Mhm.
like performing this, you know, life that like is so close to mine but like is just a little exaggerated, especially with Dumb Blonde, considering that like we shot it all in my apartment and it's kind of
Mhm.
like okay, this is like my life, but it's just the small things that make it funny where it's like, oh, the set designer sets up my kitchen in a certain way and I'm like, huh, I never thought about it that way. Like, maybe I should keep that. I'm
Yeah.
like, cute. Like, okay. So I just like kind of making this sort of separate world where she can
Mhm.
kind of exist and like play around. And that sort of gives me like more inspiration for, new songs that don't exist yet and sort of just like crafting out this very like whimsical kind of space
Mhm.
that the music can live in. So it's, for me, that's a very kind of like personal artistic part of the
Yeah.
process that's not necessarily so like production
Mhm.
focused, but it's kind of cool that through, making all my own work like this, like I kind of get to dig into every corner
Mhm.
of the process and of the art piece like that. Like, I really do try to take all of my art with a sense of humor, but
Mhm.
very seriously, like the songs are very accurate to my life. It's based off my real experiences. Like, it is me, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I get to kind of like play with this imaginary character.
Yeah.
So it's just cool.
Did you keep your kitchen the same way?
I wanted to keep she hung up this frame that I have this like Art Nouveau like print in my hallway and she like nailed it up on the wall and I was like, how did you get a nail in my wall? But my walls are just like they're literally like made of steel or something. Like they're so hard to nail into. And so literally before I could even be like like she took it down and I was like, I'm never gonna get that back up again. Like so devastating. But it's okay. To be fair, my kitchen can't really go that many ways. Like
Mhm.
it's New York, it's very small. But the art did give me something to think about. I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
we could do some mounting. Like sure.
So when you are writing a new song, what does that process look like for you?
Normally I write most of my music kind of like, in a very intimate setting, like in my living room alone. Like I'm very busy, and so I feel like unfortunately a lot of my time for music kind of comes like at the end of a very long day, and honestly, it's normally when I'm just like feeling away, up in my feelings, and
Mhm.
then I'm like, I gotta write this out, and so I'll pull out my guitar, and my process has kind of shifted a bit over the years of like music first, lyrics first, like whatever. Sometimes I start on GarageBand and start with a vibe and then figure it out along the way, But it is this kind of very insular experience of like I almost feel like I go into like a weird like trance mode. Like and I'm
Mhm.
sure many like artists kind of relate to this, but it's just kind of like I get in the flow and then 5 hours later, it's like 2 in the morning and I have a demo and I don't even know like what just happened,
Mhm.
And so I've been very like grateful for kind of like this relationship I have with myself and my own songwriting that I can kind of like tap into this thing
Mhm.
wavelength of, writing just like at home and that's really great. But I'm also kind of at a point where I would like to explore sort of like more intentional songwriting with like other people. I
Mhm.
very rarely write like in the room with anybody else. And I think kind of my working relationship with my producer now sort of would lend to us kind of like, trying some new original stuff. And like
Mhm.
we talk about kind of maybe writing new stuff for this EP. Like we're not really sure yet. But as of now, it's kind of been this sort of same process of like I come to the table to the producer like with a fully written demo and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is what it should sound like. Like, and they're kind of like, okay, like I see the vibe,
Mhm.
And it's cool now to kind of like, especially like, Dumb Blonde, like the demo, like every so often I'll just go back and listen to it and it's like, whoa, getting sucked into like a time warp of like hearing this old, like little rattly kind of demo on GarageBand. But
Mhm.
it's like if you hear it, it's like that's the song. Like it's all there,
Mhm.
So it's cool. But that's kind of been my comfort zone, and I'm
Mhm.
sort of like hoping in the next couple years to really kind of put myself out there more in a way
Yeah.
of being like a real songwriter and just trying kind of different experiences and different sort of writing dynamics.
That makes sense. How do you balance like putting all of, because you said the songs are all based on your life. So how do you balance writing a song that is true to your life while also kind of keeping some of it for yourself?
I think a lot of it comes in that like sense of humor aspect that I was
Mhm.
talking about. Like I feel like for the first project Fantasy, I feel like the sense of humor was almost like my kind of like comfort blanket. Like she's very sarcastic, I like to think it's like funny, like and I think a lot of that was kind of because like I don't know, I wrote so many kind of like melodramatic, like singer-songwritery like songs like over the course of years of sort of prepping this EP and I just like didn't really feel comfortable like putting them out. I don't know, it just like wasn't what I wanted to say. I was like, I don't really need to like write like a whiny I mean, I guess Fantasy is kind of whiny. Like whatever, it's a different kind of whiny. Like I just was like, no one needs to hear this. Like, I was like, it doesn't need to be like I'm so depressed. Like I'm like cool. Like it's not new,
Mhm.
And like to me, it was more freeing to like, create something fanciful for myself that was almost like aspirational or like
Yeah.
that like reminded me it's not as serious, when I was like feeling down. So I think that's kind of where like this character came from. And I think for Fantasy, it definitely was a bit of like my security blanket of being like, okay, well, like you can't make fun of me because I'm already making fun of myself. Like no one can like
Yeah.
laugh at this because like it's already like haha silly. And so that kind of worked for that. And I feel like now I'm trying to be like a bit more like vulnerable
Mhm.
with like my actual songwriting and kind of finding that balance still of like having there be a sense of humor while still being like genuine.
Mhm.
I think that Dumb Blonde was kind of like a good example for myself of like hitting that kind of balance right, I think. I
Mhm.
hope. Because to me, it's like really a song about, I kind of really switched up my life. Like I started a new kind of like artistic medium. I totally pivoted my career, came out as queer, like I started dating women. Like it was just like everything in my life like shifted kind of all at once. And
Mhm.
kind of just that thing of like being an artist of being like, okay, like something has got to go wrong like any minute now. Like this can't possibly be working,
Mhm.
And so I sort of feel like I was so in my tunnel vision for so long writing fantasy and I just needed to like get to the finish line, get to the finish line. And I didn't really think about like what would happen afterwards. Like
Mhm.
and it's kind of like, oh, I have like a whole adult life now and like I am like making this a career and
Mhm.
I have relationships in my life that like I care about and I have a
Yeah.
team that is like invested in my work and it's like something that used to be so insular and so like private to me is now like very much in the forefront and obviously music is very much like you're advertising yourself constantly
Mhm.
like it's very like look at me
Yeah.
which is a lot and I like live many lives in Brooklyn to keep this whole like machine going and so I just kind of was like, oh my God, like, I'm not ready for this. Like, how did I get here? And like this sort of vulnerability of being like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Mhm.
but I guess I'm just gonna keep going. Like,
Yeah.
and that's really what the song is about. But I think like finding the ways to make that song like fun and
Mhm.
be like, well, I guess at the end of the day, I'm just gonna like enjoy the moment,
Yeah.
because like what else can we even do? And so I feel like that's kind of been like that was sort of like a good example of the balance between like I'm not lying about my life,
Mhm.
it's my real genuine experience, it's my real
Yeah.
feelings, but I like to still kind of keep a sense of humor about it and like remind myself like it's not that serious.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that the new songs that are coming up like it's definitely written with sort of this like fantasy world in mind. Like to
Mhm.
me it all kind of lives in this like ether that's like very similar to our world but maybe not quite.
Mhm.
But it's just like it's over dramatic, it's cinematic, it's like it it's like I imagine the whole movie with it, like
Yeah.
it kind of has to be that over the top. So yeah, it's I think it's a continuing kind of challenge and something to explore for myself of like having my music be authentic and feeling like it reflects like me as a person
Mhm.
while also kind of like having that separation or that sense of humor about it
Yeah.
or kind of just like the self-awareness that like it is kind of like blown out of proportion because like that's what art is.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have new music. What can you share about new music that's coming?
We have a new EP in the work. She's called Star of the Show, and hopefully she'll be out later this year. And I'm very excited about the whole body of work. I really do think that kind of in the realm of everything we've been talking about, that this project is kind of like the fantasy 2.0, you
Mhm.
know? So like fantasy was kind of like I said, this very insular, kind of intimate look into my inner world and
Yeah.
sort of this like aspirational thing that I wanted for myself. And kind of like once I put it out into the world, it became real. And it's like, I write about wanting to play shows on the east side and like maybe having a girlfriend. And it's like, oh, I'm doing all those things now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, now it's living and breathing,
Mhm.
like I'm actually here doing it. And so I think that this new project kind of reflects that sort of shift and
Mhm.
of being kind of like, oh, like this is, I made that shit happen. Like, and also being like, okay, like I could do this. She's definitely like more confident, more kind of an attitude. And the sound is definitely a little bit more kind of like indie rock, kind of fun. I don't know. I'm very excited for this EP, but yeah, I think she's grown up a little bit. So I think I'll probably leave it at that. Like,
Okay. What do you do when you are struggling creatively?
um, when I'm struggling creatively. Honestly, a lot of it is normally when I'm very burnt out, like when I'm just really exhausted
Mhm.
from working all the time, constantly go, go, go. It's very easy to get like down on myself when I just have like no energy. And I'm like literally recovering from being sick. And so it's like I feel it really hard right now where I
Mhm.
just want to get like to the next thing, you know. But for me, it's like doing the things that remind me why I like did this, like going to a show and then being like, "Oh my God, like that was just amazing." Like that,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm just like, "Right, like that's why I'm here," you
Yeah.
know? So I think sometimes I just need like that creative thing to be like scratched again, or like
Mhm.
it's just small stuff like that. Like having a nice like night out with my friends. I'll be like, "Oh, right. Like that's why I'm doing this," you know?
Mhm.
Also just like seeing other art like in different mediums kind of like will sometimes unlock something in my brain, you know,
Mhm.
if I'm feeling stuck creatively. Like my girlfriend and I went to the ballet this past week and I was like sobbing. Like it was so gorgeous. And
Mhm.
that is like not even anywhere near a medium that I like could know anything about. Like, I mean, I did a lot of theater as a kid, but like not to any level of like the extent of the New York Ballet, you know.
Yeah.
But it was like just so stunning. Like it brought me to tears. Like
Mhm.
the whole thing. I was just like on the edge of my seat. Like it was incredible, you know. And just having kind of like cool art moments like that of truly just like observing and like witnessing this like amazing piece of work.
Mhm.
Like that to me, like I left being like, I could do anything. Like this
Mhm.
is incredible. Like it's just it
Yeah.
sparked so many kind of ideas and like again, it doesn't have to even be that my music is like related to this like show I saw, but it's just like something like that to like shake up your inner
Mhm.
creative bits to just be like,
Yeah, for
oh wow,
sure.
amazing, you know? So yeah, I think that a lot of the time I just need to like go outside and touch grass, and that kind of like fixes it.
Mhm.
I really like love nature, so just kind of trying to make time for actually breathing and living.
Yeah.
I think that like a lot of artists kind of get stuck in like the grind of everything, and I especially say as a musician, I'm like, well, you have to have something to write about, like
Mhm.
just like be in your apartment the whole time and then just I know that like I'm getting in a rut when I just start writing songs like I'm just trying to make it and I'm like okay we've got to go outside like so that's kind of my cue it's like go outside girl.
Mhm. There anything, like, in particular that you do to make sure that you have time to go outside and be in nature?
Oh, it is really hard. I will admit, I'm like fully a working photographer, like to fund like my entire
Mhm.
like life and career. So I juggle kind of like being a photographer, also being a musician, being a girlfriend, being a friend, like being a
Yeah.
person, you know. And so I do have to kind of like structure my week in an intentional way. Like I
Mhm.
have like 2 days a week that are blocked out specifically for like being on my computer, like writing emails
Mhm.
and doing all that good stuff. And then often I need more time than 2 days a week to do all those things. And then I kind of now have like 1 day a week where I'm like in the studio and like kind of
Mhm.
my like day for music. So now it's kind of like, you know, I book a lot of my work in advance. Like I'm literally a wedding photographer. And so like my whole summer is kind of like filled up already. But it's kind of like a blessing and a curse as a freelancer to have a gig like that where you know, I know when I'm going to be working
Mhm.
like months in advance. And so, like for me and my friends and my girlfriend, it's like a lot of just like planning trips ahead of time, like particularly for the summer. So it's like I have a lot of weekend trips planned where we
Yeah.
like get out of the city and like know that that's going to be like on the calendar. And
Mhm.
the older I get, the more kind of like booking my vacation in advance is like really necessary for me because otherwise like it just will not happen, you know. But that was also something my therapist told me a long time ago. She was like, if there's any advice I could give anybody who's like a freelancer is like schedule your beach days, like
Mhm.
literally put it on the calendar. So that's kind of where I'm at right now is like making sure that this summer is gonna have some beach days in it so that I can like get out of the house and like go enjoy my life, you know, because I really do think like being an artist, you're always going to be like aspiring to the next goal or the
Yeah.
next project, you know, and I'm very much like that. Like I'm always thinking about like the next thing on the
Mhm.
to-do list. And so like if you don't enjoy any of the ride along the way, like you're just always going to be like on the hamster wheel. You know,
Yeah.
you got to like slow down and enjoy stuff at some point. So that's been kind of like my big lesson in the past year or so.
Mhm.
And ironically, it's kind of like what Dumplot is about. So, you know,
What
how's that?
advice do you have for somebody who is kind of struggling with that work-life balance?
Uh, I think a lot of it is kind of like the discipline of finding a way that like you can structure your life that works for you
Hmm.
and like really planning out time for things. It's obviously easier said than done. Like I say
Yeah.
this, I'm like literally can like barely breathe because I'm like recovering from being sick. So you can only do what you can do, you know.
Right.
We're all doing our best. But I do think it's really hard for freelancers as well to like kind of juggle that work-life balance. And I think I like see it with a lot of my creative friends who are not on a normal like 9 to 5 schedule of having a very hard time like letting themselves feel like they're allowed to take time off or like
Hmm.
they're allowed to rest. But truly the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, no, if I do not rest my body and I don't take care of myself, then I literally am not able to even do any of the other
Hmm.
shit that I want to do. And so, like, it's literally part of my job now, like, to take care of my body.
Yeah.
Like, and I am certainly trying my best, you know? So I think that a lot of it kind of comes down to like valuing your own time the same way that you would maybe value someone else's,
Hmm.
valuing your own health, like, in that way, you know? I think valuing downtime, valuing time for creative inspiration, like valuing time to go support your other friends' art. Like, you know, I just feel like if you're, especially like in a place like New York, it's like if you are in New York because you want to be involved in all these creative things, like pursue whatever you're pursuing, but all you do is like sit at home. It's like you're not really maximizing
Yeah.
like the purpose of being here. You know, there's so much opportunity here. Again, I get it. The older
Hmm.
I get, I'm like, my tourist placements are very much like, can we stay home? You know? So I think it's just about knowing when is the night to go out and when is the night
Hmm.
to stay home. But I mean, life's just all about balance. You know, it's just about kind of keeping it all in flux. And I think there's different seasons for everything. But
Yeah.
maybe just right now, because it's like Gemini season, I'm like, let's get like, ready to party. Pride month. Like, woo.
Yeah. It's a fun month. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about before I ask the last question?
No, I think we've hit a lot of it. So
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Okay. So the last question is, what is the soundtrack of your life?
Ah, girl, the soundtrack of my life is really blonde. Like, obviously, I mean, I love that that's like what the name of the podcast is because I used to literally be like, wouldn't it be so cool if there was like speakers like in the street lights and like at any moment they'd just be like playing music that would like fit your life and everyone
Hmm.
was like, so like the radio? And I was like, no, like it's like a cinema thing, like,
Hmm.
you know?
No, I get what you're saying.
And like I have always like felt that so strongly. Like I am so that girl, like on the subway listening to my music. Like I am just in a movie right now, you
Hmm.
know, like looking out the window. It's just very that. And I feel like, you know, I can look back to like many of my years living in New York and like know what I was listening to and just like remember that moment so formatively and like,
Hmm.
you know, it kind of comes back to me in waves. And even like last night, like at the Fletcher and Friends Festival, like I've been to the Stone Pony in New Jersey like so many times and like just like kind of having this way to kind of date myself and like look back at the past and remember all
Hmm.
these shows that I've been to, like music. I mean, live music is just so formative to me, especially coming out of COVID. Like I'm constantly like in that, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe it's a little like main character syndrome, but I think that's kind of like what every artist is like
Hmm.
living. And also it's like it's your life. You gotta like live it up, you
Yeah.
know. But it's like that's what my music is to me, is like that's my soundtrack, you know. It's that's what my life feels like and it's what it felt like at the time when I was writing it. And then it's cool now to kind of like be able to listen to it back and like look back on that chapter, you know. And now
Hmm.
it's like I live my life now and I work on my music now and I listen to my demos just like over and over again, like a psycho, and like, you know, just like go about my life, like listening to my little music because I'm just like, that's just how I'm feeling now, you know? So obviously, I have tons of artists and bands and music that I love and listen to constantly, but I'm like, if there was a soundtrack to my life, it's really blonde. Like,
I like that you've written the soundtrack to your life.
yes, like that's what I wanted, you know? I was like, photo is not good enough. Like it needs to be 3D. Like it's just like it needs to be moving, it needs to be making noise. Like
Hmm.
it's just like not enough, you know? I like it to be very immersive because it feels like that to me. I mean, but that's like so much of why the visuals are so part of it for me. Like it's a movie. Like
Hmm.
it's truly a movie. I mean, the other day I was literally talking to my friend being like, I can't wait till we make like an art film, like that's kind of like where I see this
Hmm.
going. If I can like achieve everything I'd like to achieve, like, like world tour is awesome, but like to me, it's kind of like I want like the legacy of like I mean, video's not physical, but
No, I get what you're saying.
like I want to be able to like watch the movie later. Like, so, keep your eyes out.
Yeah. So where can our listeners find you to stay updated on you?
Yes, you can find me pretty much anywhere at Really Blonde, RLYBLONDE, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, everything, YouTube. But yeah, so you can find me anywhere kind of on the internet at Really Blonde and follow along with my antics and my music and my photography and everything. You can find all my creative work at Really Hot Creative on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear the EP when it finally comes out.
Woohoo! Me too.
Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Listeners, go check her out and make sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at STO Lives Podcast. Thanks for joining us.